Mel Sturk. I'm the Director of Organizational Development here in Halifax or Jibuktuk with Phoenix Youth Programs. And so happy to have this opportunity. First to say a huge thank you for the opportunity to work with the Community Housing Transformation Center on our Sectoral Transformation Fund project, which is local and in nature. And our project is called the Bedrock Project, which I'm already getting some yabba dabba doos from my colleagues, but I think it's an apt name for the work that we're going to be doing. Um, the amount of funding that we've received from the center is $148,100. So this is not insignificant for us. It's a great piece of work that now we're able to press forward with, thanks to your support. The project has three really main objectives, and so what we want to do is grow. And over the last year, we've been developing what we call our strategic compass, or a strategic plan, that was released and made official in January 2020. So it's very fresh. And within that compass, we've clearly identified need to both secure our current operations and look into growth for the sector. So for anybody who doesn't know too much about who we are as Phoenix, we are a social justice focused agency. We work with youth who are ages 11 to 24, and our residential side of our programming is for youth ages 16 to 24. We have a lot of upstream programming as well, to deal with early intervention and prevention through community-based programs, as well as therapeutic support for youth and families, community outreach, and we also, on the other side of things, work with youth in employment and education. But residentially, our programs cover kind of three main areas for youth. One is our shelter. So we have a 20-bed shelter in the south end of Halifax where youth come to us when they're in crisis. We have another, our first home, really, Phoenix House, was how everything originated in 1987. And that house has 10 rooms where youth are working on developing skills, life skills, while going to school, being employed, or being part of a considerable volunteer opportunity. So they're building structure in their lives, and they're getting ready to move out on their own. It's a very family-based environment. And then we also have 3 homes for independence, and that's where youth actually live with one of our staff. We call that staff member a live-in. But what we know is that those supports aren't enough. For anybody who's been following vacancy rates in Nova Scotia or across Canada, just this past year, we've experienced our lowest vacancy rate ever at 1%. We, in our strategic plan, as I've mentioned, we're really focused on making sure that we open some options. We also need to get creative as a province. There's not a lot of creative forms of housing, and we often feel like we're a bit behind the curve of the rest of Canada. So we want to step it up. And this project is going to help us do that. So one of the main outcomes of the project and objectives is to reinforce our organizational capacity. We also want to identify and fill sectoral gaps in housing. So as I just mentioned, the gaps are huge, and we've been talking about this for a while, but we've had a hard time really nailing down what we want to do because the gaps are many and huge. So part of this project is to look at models across the country and potentially internationally to see what fits within our context, or what can we modify into our context to be able to help youth in our region find housing. And we're hoping that through doing that research, we'll share it and engage other partners, and through the center be able to communicate what we're doing so that other people can, and other groups can learn about what we found, and then hopefully implement those things through the great funding opportunities that are coming down federally and provincially, and some are already here. We also want to engage community. So in light of COVID-19, I know that's all that we are thinking about and living these days. We're going to have to get a little bit creative around that, but we're confident that we can do it. This is a 3-year project as well, so we'll see how things change over the next few months. But we want to make sure that community is informed of um, the concepts that we may end up looking at when we get into our feasibility plan of our project. And you can see how that will be incredibly helpful for our region. And we're hoping that others will do the same with us with their projects as well. When it comes down to the center and some feedback on the process, I can't say enough how great it's been. Oftentimes, when you put in a project to a government agency or to, even a corporate funder, you create something, you cross your fingers that this is what they want, and it goes basically into a black hole until it pops back out and tells you whether or not you were successful. And that was not the situation with the center at all. Working with Aude was amazing, and I'm excited to continue working with her, and of course Stefan and Luke as well. And all three of them came to visit us here in Nova Scotia a few months ago, and that was a great opportunity to really get to know them. The process has been very iterative, so by no means were we ever did we ever think that because it was back and forth and yes and no that we had the project, but it was a lot of question and answer, opportunity to respond. It was also very clear that it was going through to a committee afterwards, an allocation committee. So that conversation with most of my conversations were with Aude. We talked about getting it ready for that process, and she was very, very responsive and really just like a wonderful process compared to what we would typically go through. The processing time was actually faster than expected. So we were told that it would take about 3 months, which was understandable considering um, the, the quantity and quality of proposals that were likely to come in. But we heard back, I think it was maybe 6 weeks before we expected to, which was fantastic because it was just before the end of our fiscal year, and we were able to include that in the budget within the last few days of the month before it went to our board. So I don't have anything to criticize, honestly. The forms were clear. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to put heart into boxes, but it's part of the process, and we know that. So overall, I think it's just been a really exciting and wonderful experience, and looking forward to making this project happen and what's going to happen in the next 3 years. And just so pleased that we were able to be considered for this work and accepted for this work, and that you see value in investing in Phoenix as well as Nova Scotia. Thank you so much.